Thank you very much for joining us today, David. It's a pleasure having you. It was wonderful listening to you moderating a session and then afterwards as well. As we learned on the session as well, you've been working with Uzbekistan for quite some time and you've been working very closely with the central bank as well. So out of today's session, the one you were moderating, the panel on floating exchange rates, what were the key insights that you got, maybe some disagreements, something new that you learned that stood out to you?
Thank you. Thank you also for the nice words. Yes, I've been coming here for some time and it's been privileged to be here during today's event as well. I think broadly we all agree that Uzbekistan and CB in particular is on a good reform path and should continue on that path in the coming years. We also agreed that in terms of exchange rate, the authorities should not be afraid of flexible exchange rate. That the conditions are right and that the private sector is probably more ready than the authorities think that they are. And all the private sector needs is probably just a predictable environment, clear communications, and a clear commitment from the central bank and other authorities that they will continue on this reform path, that they will keep on building markets by providing infrastructure, technical infrastructure, legal infrastructure, but also adjusting their operations and the way they act in the markets in such a way that markets can grow, the liquidity can grow. I think that's all that's needed, and I think there was a broad agreement on this, and yeah, that's about it. If there's any disagreement, it was just about, I think all agreed also that there is a role for the central bank in the exchange rate market in the coming period as well. So it's not that the central bank is going to disappear or should disappear, but there was probably some kind of a disagreement. What does that really mean, and how strong that role should be, and how quickly it should recede. So that again, there was agreement that over time the role of the central bank as the market maker should recede, but how quick what that means in practical terms, there were some different views.
I think these events will help foster more such debates, and we'll get to an agreement on the disagreement soon as well. Moving forward, you have worked in various different countries, and what are the key challenges that emerging economies face when they're shifting towards a free-floating exchange rate? How many are in Uzbekistan? How do you think we can overcome them over here?
It's fears, overcoming fears. Sometimes it's all bundled together under one term. It's called fear of floating. But there are a lot of fears. You are afraid of depreciating exchange rate. You're afraid of appreciating exchange rate, always for a good reason. But often these fears prevent authorities in other countries, at least in my experience, prevented them to do reforms in time when conditions were good. Uzbekistan is enjoying a very, very good period, and is, I think, rightly using this good period, this good times to perform necessary reforms. And in other countries that opted for a more gradual approach, let's put it this way, in some cases that transition had never been accomplished in time because times have changed, and so this is one danger and a fear that a challenge that the CBU will have to overcome, that is to use the time opportunely to finish up on the reforms fast.
So I think the natural follow-up question would be that times do change and global volatility today even remains high. So in such an environment, what do you think the external risk to Uzbekistan are, especially as they transition into a free-floating exchange rate?
Yeah, so Uzbekistan, as any other small open economy, is vulnerable to external shocks, especially external terms of trade shock. In this particular case, that relates to the price of gold, that is extremely favorable to Uzbekistan right now as an exporter of gold. But of course, this can change, and the volatility, this can result in some volatility. But that's why the CBU is implementing the reforms it's implementing in order to be more resilient and be more ready to use its arsenal of tools as shock absorbers when such situation arises. Aside from terms of trade, these are of course geopolitical shocks, and the situation, as we have seen over the last few years, is becoming extremely unpredictable. And again, it's good to have a lot of shock absorbers in place. Exchange rate is one of them.
Definitely. As a communications consultant myself, based on the discussions today, what practical steps do you think the central bank can take, Uzbekistan in general can take, to improve market confidence, and especially communicate during periods of exchange rate fluctuation, as communication and communicating these policies was a main part of the discussions today?
Yeah, I think also one of my colleagues on the panel emphasized it's good to be clear about the purpose of what you're doing in the market. Very often, and I'm not speaking right now just about CBU, but in central banking in general, we are doing a lot of things at the same time, and to us, it's to people inside the central bank, it's very clear why we are doing these things, but to people outside, it's not. And if we are doing a lot of them at the same time, the message becomes bundled. So making sure that people understand that CBU is in the market for reason A and is not there for reason B is a very important message, and be consistent with that message. Communication has to be consistent and has to be backed up by deeds. So this will be a long process, and I think it's started, and I think CBU is committed to continuing that.
Thank you. I think my final question to you will be, what is one thing that you find extremely encouraging in Uzbekistan, in your experience, that you might not have seen anywhere else?
It's enthusiasm. I have seen, there are always bumps along the roads and reform appetite. There are periods of stronger appetite, reform appetite, and weaker appetite. And sometimes it's, you have external shocks, as we discussed, and against all these circumstances, it's very difficult to keep your objective very clear and to work through it. Maybe slower, maybe sometimes slower, in a slower pace, sometimes at a faster pace. And this enthusiasm that I see here working with the colleagues from the central bank and other institutions is actually amazing. And I'm not sure if I've seen it anywhere else. This endurance is also for me as a consultant as very endearing, because it means that if I come in a year from now, I will find similarly motivated people, maybe the same people, maybe other people, similarly motivated. They will know what they want to do eventually, even though they may see obstacles right now. They will be committed to accomplish that eventually. So I think that's a very important characteristic that brings me back to Uzbekistan ever so often.
I must agree with that as well. And I hope the enthusiasm continues. And on that, thank you very much, David, for your panel today and for speaking to us. Thank
you for having me.
No, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.